네, 월가 트레이더 버니의 미국 주식 시간입니다. 앞서서 말씀을 해주신 것처럼 이 연준이 5월 FOMC 회의 결과에서 조금 더 빅스텝, 강한 금리 인상을 시사한 바가 있기 때문에 거기에 따라서 채권시장은 30년 만에 깊은 침체에 빠졌다라는 내용이 나오고 있습니다. 이 부분에 대해서 자세하게 월스트리트에 지금 계시는 버니 씨께서 설명을 좀 해주신다고 하니까 이 부분을 바로 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
If we look at generally the health of the market, we've already identified periods where we've said the market, the internals of the market are not performing well. Whether we can say the number of NASDAQ stocks have made a new 52-week low instead of a new 52-week high, whether the advanced decline line or number of stocks that are going up on the day versus down on the day. And we've looked at that over time, and we've said, we're getting into periods where these are very attractive levels to be able to stop the market from going down, to be able to identify a short-term bottom. Now, what internals do, okay, is only identify a short-term bottom. They don't necessarily tell you that this is the bottom and we're going up and we're not going to go back to those prices again. So you need to put together more information to be able to identify those. But let's look at what's going on right now, because what's going on right now, we've got a few things going on. We've got interest rates going higher, okay, and we've got the Russia-Ukraine conflict that is basically concerning the world in terms of whether Europe gets enough energy supplies, whether it's fair to take over an independent country, that sort of thing. What's the negative potential downside? Ukraine exports 20% of the world's corn and 30% of the world's wheat. So when we think about this, are we concerned about Russia? What does that do? Is that going to slow down the global economy or not? Well, let's get past that and just look at the internals right now. Let's review where we've been in terms of when we identified that there was a exhaustion, too much selling at the end of January. And we could see when we look at this chart right here, when we bottomed, 78% of the NASDAQ stocks were going down. 1,790 of those NASDAQ stocks were making new lows. That's substantial because there's only 2,500 of those stocks, and some of them are in energies and some of them are in banking that'll be a beneficiary of higher interest rates, a beneficiary of higher crude oil prices. So 1,790 stocks making new 52-week lows was a terrible number. And we can see down here that this was a bottom. We bounced off of that fairly substantially, a little over 10% bounce off that bottom quickly, and then we've been back down here again. Now this number just is right before Russia has invaded Ukraine. And we'll talk about that in a minute in terms of identifying opportunities for buying when it comes into a global conflict. But we're back down into those same levels in terms of advances versus declining volume. How many stocks are going up versus how many stocks are going down. So when we look at that, we can see that this is an opportunity here. Let's look at the next chart. Now, what we do here is we've looked at new highs, new lows. And we can see, again, as we went up and we talked about this at the fourth quarter, how the market was eroding. We were making much less new highs, yet the market was at a new high. So we were all led by the biggest of the big stocks. Now we had an exhaustion problem down here, and this is that 1,790 stocks making new 52-week lows. We've bounced up, and now even though we're down to that same price, not all the stocks are making new 52-week lows. So there is some positivity going on down here, even though we're at lower prices. This was an exhaustion gap where we were able to define great buying opportunities in general. We are now back at that place, and what the market is saying is, not all stocks are in bad shape in terms of we're not all going down and making new 52-week lows. That's a positive sign. Again, these are all short-term thoughts. Short-term meaning 3 to 6 months. When we think about the health of the market, let's think about all these ETFs, exchange-traded funds that we can buy that can give us a replication. We can buy an exchange-traded fund that allow us to be able to be long the S&P 500 index. We can buy an exchange-traded funds that allow us to participate in the decline. In other words, it's a negative ETF in terms of it does better as the market does worse. So you can buy inverse ETFs or you can buy positive ETFs. Now, what we also want to look at is and all these ETFs are basically, you can buy them on margin, so you can buy them on leverage. So you, just like a stock, you don't have to put up all your money. So we want to think about, there are ETFs that say, I'll give you twice as much exposure if you buy my ETF. If the market goes up, I'll go up twice as fast. Well, also, if the market goes down, it'll go down twice as fast. So all you're doing is adding leverage on. So let's think about the leverage of the ETFs that are on the long side of the market and the leverage of the ETFs that are on the short side of the market, and look at what happens. So going into the end of last year, we were 6-to-1 buying more leveraged long ETFs than leveraged short ETFs. And that was the biggest area we've been at in terms of the red line for the last 15 years. So we were really getting over-enthused. And we were getting over-enthused by concentrating all that activity in some of the best stocks, because when we looked at the new highs, new lows, and we saw that going down, and we look at the advanced decline, and we saw that going down, there were so many smaller and mid-sized companies that were not making new highs, and in fact, actually were making new 52-week lows. Yet at the same time, you've got all this activity where people are buying all these leveraged longs, and that was dangerous. So now what we've gone down to is we've gone down to the level down here where we're very close to a bottom. And if we look at this chart, we can identify times when the market hits these lower levels where we actually do better. So I think this is a positive sign for the market. A lot of that froth that we had in late 2021 is already being taken out. And we can see that through things like this, analysis like this. Let's look at the next chart. When we think about the market right now, we hear people saying energy is a great place to be. We want to have our exposure in the financial sector. And my God, we don't want to be in technology because all the high growth stocks are not interesting to us. We don't think they're going to go and outperform. Well, I think we got to be careful with that thought process. I think that you always look to buy the high growth stocks if you want to be able to participate. And most of the time, when the market truly rallies, it's the growth stocks that are driving our market. And that's why NASDAQ, which has much more growth stocks in there than the S&P and the Dow Jones Industrial Average, that's why the NASDAQ outperforms on both sides. When the market goes up, it outperforms much more. When the market goes down, they really hit the growth stocks. Well, when we look at on this, okay, and we can identify the allocation to technology, okay, in terms of overall market, we can identify periods here where we allocate very little to technology. Now, we have to go back and think about this, okay? How much has technology changed since 2000, and how important is the growth in technology now? In 2006, 7, 8, when we got the iPhones, for example, and all that, technology was becoming so much more important. We could build out these apps. We could do things that we were never able to do before. Now we have cloud-based networking. We're in that period again where we can identify that there is going to be great technology going forward for us in terms of where we're going to go technology-wise over the next 3 to 5 years. And what we have right here is, again, we have a low allocation to technology. And I think when we think about that and we think about this technology and are these stocks attractive to buy, and we realize where we are, we can identify that there currently right now are some great values in this technology, in this high growth space. I know that space is out of favor right now, but when the markets rally a lot, you have to be in that space to be able to outperform the S&P.
네, 버니의 미국 주식 같은 경우는 서울경제TV 유튜브 채널에서 다시 보실 수 있고요. 지금 현재 하단에 나가고 있는 노란톡 통해서도 함께 만나보실 수 있다는 점까지 전달해 드리도록 하겠습니다.